Welcome to Inspiration Contagion, where we spread inspiration one story at a time. I am your host, Holly Jean Jackson. Each interview spotlights transformational business leaders, their stories, challenges, and advice for how you too can lead yourself and others through inspiration. Learn how you too can achieve peak performance, build more revenue, and lead the legacy you were meant to lead. Welcome to episode 77 of Inspiration Contagion. This week's guest is Richard Clarke. Richard is the founder of Secret Source, an IT outsourcing company based in Spain. In 2014, Richard had a theory that if he set up a company whose main objective was to make its team and clients happy, revenue and profits and the traditional definitions of success would follow. So, for the last 9 years, Richard has been studying the science of happiness and applying it to the workplace. Since 2014, Secret Source has grown from 2 to 40 people, and it has an almost 100% client retention rate. That is extremely high, showing that prioritizing happiness truly does have the power to create amazing teams that will positively impact any company, even in technical industries like IT. Richard's mission now is to share his story with the rest of the world to show that by focusing on happiness, you really can make better companies. With that, welcome, Richard.
Thank you very much. Very pleased to be here.
Yeah, it's funny. I was reading your bio and I was like, it says in 2014 twice. I'm like, am I repeating myself? So I had a little moment of pause and reflection there. But amazing stuff. 100% retention. That's incredible. 100% happiness and retention of
Almost,
clients. That's
almost. Yeah.
incredible. And that's inspiring in itself.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I had the theory a few years ago. I didn't know if it was going to work. But honestly, what's more important than happiness? That's the.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Man, we can all use some more happiness. The world would be a
Yeah.
better place if we had happier people, happier companies. So, with
Exactly.
that, I want to ask you, since we're on Inspiration Contagion,
Cool.
what is it that makes you an inspirational leader, or what would you say is your secret sauce?
Okay. So, right. Ever since I was 16, 16, 17, I've sort of been obsessed with this concept of happiness. So first it was my own happiness. I wanted to find like what job would make me the most happy I could be. I traveled the world. I taught English in Africa. I ran a bar in Turkey, went to Australia, worked on a summer camp in America too, in Philadelphia. Um, and then in the last 10 years, it's been how can I make other people happier? Okay, so that's sort of my personal purpose, my personal why in life. And what I've learned over the years, in sort of my pursuit to make other people happy, is that is everyone has potential. Like everyone has the potential to do really great things. Everybody is what I believe. They just need an opportunity to show it, and they need the sort of the right environment to be able to grow. This sort of a supportive environment. And so I I I I believe that the role of a leader is just to provide that place and give all the tools so that people can really achieve their potential. So what's my secret sauce? Okay, so look, I'm not gonna I'm not gonna I'm not Tim Robbins. I'm not gonna stand in front of a stadium of people and preach to them and they're gonna cheer at me. That's not my secret. That's not how I work. But I can create that environment where people feel safe. People feel comfortable to be themselves. And to enjoy their work, and therefore that they can grow, they can flourish into to fulfill their potential. Yeah, that's what
That is a pretty amazing secret sauce
I believe.
because, man, a lot of people would say that they've never experienced a workplace where they felt safe, where they could be themselves. My story that many of our listeners have heard is I climbed the corporate ladder to the top and kept experiencing layoffs coupled with health challenges. And to me, that pattern was telling me that work environment was just not for me. It was a toxic work environment. And that's ultimately why I started my own business, and I help other business leaders create better employee experiences for their employees so that then their customers are also being delivered valuable services and resources and products from people that are, happier, healthier.
Yeah.
And my focus is more on balanced, holistic, and healthy lifestyles, but obviously happiness and well-being is a huge component of that. So that's an amazing secret sauce, and thank you for the work you're doing there.
Cool.
Yeah. So I want to ask you, what does inspiration mean to you?
Okay, wow, this this is a difficult question, right? So, what I'm going to say is what makes me inspired. Okay, so when I feel inspired, right, I feel like I'm motivated from a really deep level, somewhere deep inside, to do to do something that I feel is important. That's when I feel inspired to do stuff, and my constant pursuit to make people happy allows me to well, it helps me to work those extra hours, to do all that extra studying. I enjoy doing it. I enjoy learning about these things. That's what inspiration means to you. Look, before I started doing this, I floated around between jobs. I started a couple of companies. I had jobs in big companies, jobs in small companies. But I was happy. I had a lovely family. Um, Nice house and went on holiday and stuff like that. But I always knew there was something missing, right? Um, and then I read the book Start with Why. Okay, I'm sure you've read it. Simon
Yeah.
Sinek, everybody's read it. But um, and I realized that I didn't have a why. I didn't have a personal purpose in life. And once I found that what gave me uh, what fulfilled me was and made me happy was making people happy. And once I had that, I had a direction. Um, so inspiration to me means having this sort of higher goal um, that that you feel motivated to work extra for because you just want to do it basically. I think.
Yeah. I love
Yeah,
that. Yeah, so that's like finding that inner spark, that inner passion, that inner
yeah,
calling, so that
yeah,
then when you tap into that spark, you have the energy, the motivation, the excitement, even on
exactly.
the days that are long or have tedious administrative work, when it's tied to that bigger purpose, that bigger calling, it's still exciting and motivating, and you still have the energy to do everything that each day calls for.
Yeah,
So that's
totally.
a really
Yeah,
cool definition.
cool.
Yeah. So I want to ask you a little bit more about peak performance, and I'm sure your answer is going to be unique because of your focus on happiness. So, how do you define peak performance, and how did you arrive at this definition?
Okay, so what I've learned from building a company with employees is that everyone is different, right? Everyone is really, really different. And everyone has their strengths, everyone has their weaknesses. And if you think that everyone's going to perform to the same level, you're always going to be disappointed. And if you treat everyone the same, right? No one's well, some people, but most people just won't reach their potential. So you have to treat them differently. So the first thing I want to say is that peak performance, like it's different for everybody, right? We build IT teams of sort of 3 to 5 developers that work for companies in the UK, US, or whatever. And so some people their peak performance might be just writing the best code. Other people it might be um, keeping the team positive when things don't go well. Others might be teaching others. Um, so so everyone's different. That's the first thing. But I think to perform at your highest level, right? To have peak performance, I think you need to have two things, right? And the first one is that you need to know what you're good at, right? And I genuinely believe that most people don't know what they're good at. I didn't. I had to do one of those, those online tests. And once I did that, it said that I always thought my what I was best at was organizing people, taking complex problems, breaking them down into tasks, and uh, I love tasks. I love task lists. I love to GTD and all that. And I thought that was my strength. But after doing this online study, I realized that that wasn't my strength. My strength was actually coaching. And once I got that, I thought, yeah, you're right. Um, yeah, that is what I enjoy most, and that's why. So I think there's two things. One, you need to know what you're good at, and sometimes you don't know what you're good at. And second is you need to know what you like doing. And then by combining those things, by crafting your job into something that you like doing and that you're good at, that's when you can perform at your highest level, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. Absolutely. And I would agree most people don't know what they're good at. That's why one of my favorite questions that I ask folks when they come into my world, usually at a group call, is what's your superpower in business?
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't really know what their superpower is, or you can see them kind of stumbling and fumbling, trying to figure out what it is. And even the folks that answer confidently, I would say 90% of them don't really quite know what their superpower is because they haven't
Yeah.
fully uncovered their secret sauce.
Yeah.
And you really need to go to somebody else typically to figure that out because they're like, well, of
Yeah.
course I see you clearly, but it's almost always a blind spot for most people. And so I agree, like, it's helping people uncover what they're good at and then helping them have a roadmap with performance indicators tied to the thing that they're good at. And then also, of course, helping them somehow align as much as possible what their personal mission and vision is to the company or the job that they're performing, that mission and vision, so that they feel deeply fulfilled by the work that they're doing. But I
Yeah.
also like the reminder you put in there that not all of us are going to be able to perform at the same level. And when you set those expectations and you try to assume that everybody's going to perform like Holly, where everybody's going to, perform exactly like Richard, that's very unrealistic because we all have different skill sets that we bring to the table and different levels of drive. And so you really have to meet your employees where they are and set realistic goals for them.
Yeah, but you also need to measure them on different things because some people will
Mhm.
excel in the things that you might not think are important, but are just as important. Yeah, totally agree.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, and it's good to get people out of their comfort zone and try to help them grow in areas where they're maybe not as strong, but also setting KPIs, key performance indicators for people where they are strong, so they grow even stronger in those things. So obviously, there are challenges along the way. So, what are some of the challenges or obstacles that you faced along your way to peak performance and starting this company?
Okay, my personal journey to peak performance, I think it's what we said before. It was finding what I was good at. I think that was the main obstacle. I genuinely didn't know, and for years I thought I was good at something else. And do you know what? Sometimes I still forget about my strengths, and I forget about why I'm doing it. Like for the last probably not the last couple of sort of April, May this year, I got to the end of May and I was feeling really demoralized about work. I wasn't enjoying it, and I couldn't work out why it was. And when I sort of reflected on it, I realized I wasn't doing what I like doing. I wasn't doing the coaching role. I've just sort of fallen into the rhythm of work, and I was just doing tasks for the sake of doing them, and I'd forgotten why I was doing it. And so you just have to keep reminding yourself, um, and you have to intentionally make sure that you're working the way that you need to do, and following your vision. I think that's really important. But you have to be intentional because it's so easy to fall into the rhythm of work and just sort of get on with things. Do you know what I mean?
I do know what you mean. That's a great reminder for folks listening too, that even once you uncover that mission and vision, it's easy to fall into old patterns or old habits or old ways of working that are not aligned to what you're trying to
Yeah,
build in your company culture, in the job that you have in the company that you're leading. And
yeah,
we really have to walk the talk as leaders for our employees, our clients, the people around us, to be able to believe and feel inspired by us. So it's so important that we have that intentionality every single day. And it's so easy for life and just overwhelm and the administrative day to day to get in the way of losing that vision and on the
yeah,
smaller, finer details, which are equally important. So that's a great
yeah,
reminder.
yeah.
Yeah. So, on that, how are you creating a culture that allows for peak performance at your company?
Okay, so okay, yes, you want everyone to perform at their best. Okay, but for me, the holy grail is getting everyone to work as a team. I'm sure you've worked in a team where that's just worked really well, and honestly, I think it's like watching magic happen in real life. When a team works really well together, the stuff they can do just far out exceeds what those individuals, those 4 or 5 people as an individual could achieve. So in our company, it's all about the team, right? So, but the question is how can you create an environment where teams blossom? Okay, and I came across this answer almost by accident. Well, uh, it was by accident. So when I started my company, I believed that yeah, happiness was the secret, and if our team was happy, they'd enjoy their work and they'd do better work. And one of my theories was that a team the company had to be like a family company. You know, the type where you enjoy coming to work. You feel you have friends there. You feel you have a support network, so if something goes wrong, you have someone to chat to. A company where you want to have lunch with the people in your company and not sit at your desk having a sandwich. You want to go for a beer after work sometimes with them. And so I think the secret to sort of high performance in a company is family. Now, scientifically, the term isn't family-based company. So I don't know if you've come across Google did a massive study in, I think it was 2007, called Project Aristotle, where they wanted to.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is like, once I found this, it was like, oh, that's how it works. Okay, so it was amazing. Once I read this, it was like a massive light bulb moment. So for those listeners who haven't heard of it, they wanted to find out the characteristics of their highest performing teams. So they studied thousands of employees. I think it was something like 37,000 employees, 180 teams over a couple of years, and they looked at everything. They looked at like age, they looked at experience, they looked at shared interests in the team. I looked at all these things, and they found that the main characteristic of their highest performing teams was something called some psychological safety. Okay, now psychological safety is it's when you're in a group, when you're in a group situation, and then you feel safe to ask other people in the group questions. You feel safe challenging them. You feel safe you just feel safe to talk in that group, okay, without, you don't have any fear that they're going to criticize you or chastise you or anything like that. I like to think of it, when I was at school, a classroom of 30 people, I never felt safe putting my hand up, because you feel the teacher's going to go, that's a silly question, or the other kids will go, "Ooh." Do you know what I mean? So we do a lot of work in our company on psychological safety, and so we teach our team what it is. We tell them what a safe teams looks like, and how to make other people in the team feel safe if you see that they're not safe. So going back to your question, sort of rambled on a bit, right? How do you create the environment? Well, so I think the secret is creating a culture where people feel safe, right? Is the optimum way to improve performance in that team. It's what Google found out, and I think that's the secret. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. It makes a
Cool.
lot of sense, and that was an amazing study as well. And I think it's very important today more than ever. Psychological safety doesn't exist in many places. And,
Mhm.
coming out of the pandemic where we used to have a lot more avenues for community and connection, it's even more important today that where we have employees that we're creating that safe space for psychological safety. And I agree. I would say it is magic when you
Yeah.
have people that collaborate well together, that work well together as a team. They are completing each other's sentences. They know what that person's thinking before they
Yeah.
say it. I've had a collaboration with two other guys. One's in Nova Scotia, one's in Oregon, and we did this show called the Business Builder Throwdown. And
Yeah.
these guys became like brothers for me. They are still my business family, And when I'm considering big things, I always go to them for their opinion, their wisdom on things. But it came after a while of working together where we would be doing a battle because the premise of the show was to teach and educate people on business development growth tools by battling out different sides of something that really the answer was both. But I
Mm.
always knew what Matt was going to say next. I was like, oh, this is going to be the perfect jab because I know Matt's going to say this, and oh, it's going to get him right in the solar plexus. And you could see it in his expression. He's like, I knew you were going to go there, Holly. But it was fun and playful, and it was psychologically safe because that was the premise of the show.
Cool.
But
Awesome.
yes, absolutely, creating a safe space for your employees so that they can fail, meaning like they test things, they
Exactly.
experiment things, and be safe, and they can thrive, and they can experiment, and they can try things. And then, of course, that also leads to more happiness, which is your
Yeah, yeah,
goal,
yeah.
which is amazing.
Yeah, that's one thing I forgot. You're quite right. Feeling safe to fail, that is really, really important. And they're not going to be blamed. If something doesn't go to plan, then they don't feel they're going to be blamed. Because as soon as people feel they're going to be blamed, yeah, it just breaks everything. So you're right
Bringing that up is really interesting. When do plans actually go
there.
exactly as we expect them to? Let me just put this out there: hardly ever.
Yeah.
That's why you have backup plans. That's why you have additional things. That's why project timelines literally have extra leeway in them because we know nothing is ever going to go exactly according to the wishful plan that we have put together.
Yes.
So, absolutely, wouldn't it be nice if life allowed you to fail because it's going to happen? Like, that would be
Yeah.
nice. Just putting that out there today. Kind of
It is cool.
philosophical.
And if you go into these projects with the understanding that everybody is trying their hardest, given the knowledge they've got and the situation and the resources they have, do you know what? It's so much easier if you go into that with that mindset. Um,
Yeah.
they didn't mean to make that mistake. They didn't mean for it to go wrong. Do you know?
Yeah, most
Yeah,
people are very well intentioned and they are doing
exactly.
the
Yeah.
best they have with
Yeah. Yeah.
the resources they have with the situation facing in life. And we never know what somebody else is walking through. So making that assumption is also equally important.
Cool.
So I wanted to ask you, how important is that employee experience to reaching that optimal peak performance, or in your case, that optimal team flow state?
Yeah, critical, and unbelievably critical. Yeah, right. To feel safe, to perform at the highest level, yeah, people need to be happy, right? So, building that employee experience where people feel happy, yeah, is absolutely essential. Now, how do you make people feel happy? This is the sort of magic question right there. There's a really good study by the U.S. Surgeon General recently on how to make well-being part of your culture. And they said there's five essentials. See if I can remember them now. Right, people need to feel that their work has meaning. They feel that they've got to feel that they're growing. They've got a sense of community. They feel they're safe, and yeah, got them. And if they feel they're recognized for their work they're doing. Now, if you complete those five things, if your company focuses on those, yeah, your team will be happier than they are at the moment. Now, creating a happy team just doesn't happen naturally. Sometimes it does. Sometimes it does happen naturally, but a lot of the time it doesn't, especially when you've got a remote team. So you have to be really, really intentional about it. But when you do create a happy team, yeah, it's magical. Yeah, they collaborate more, they innovate more. And do you know what's really interesting? There's lots of studies coming out in the last couple of years that show that happier teams actually are more profitable. And there was a study that came out, I think it like last month or a couple of months ago, saying that the companies with the happiest teams actually have better performing share value than others. So there we go.
I mean, it
Yeah,
makes sense to me.
yeah,
If
yeah,
people are unhappy, they're not likely to be like, "Oh, let's try this thing out," or "I have a
yeah,
great idea." They're like, "Oh, when do I get to go home?" But
yeah,
it's so
yeah,
funny when you're saying, "How do you make people happy?" I was like leaning, I'm like, "Tell me the secret, Richard. How
yeah.
do you make people happy?" Because I feel like that's something, yeah, that's one of the American dreams, at least in the
Mm,
US, is happiness, the pursuit of
yeah.
happiness. We hear this over and over again. What I also find really interesting, and I would say, like, yes, I think that that study is completely accurate, but I have this shirt that I got at this yoga festival years ago from a company I love named Spiritual Gangster, and it
Okay.
says choose happiness.
Yes.
Because the reality is that in every single moment, we can literally choose to be happy. Even
Yes.
if like something terrible is happening, we can
Yeah.
choose something to be grateful for and find happiness in that moment. That's why you'll see people who are grieving, right? They're crying, they're being emotional, and all of a sudden there's this like moment of laughter and they feel guilty for feeling that levity and that laughter, but you need those breaks from those heavy moments. And
Yeah.
so I don't know where I'm going with this, but I just feel like it's very important to have those moments of happiness and to remind ourselves that we can actually choose it in that moment.
Yeah. Totally
Yeah.
agree. Totally
That
agree.
was an interesting tangent. So, since you're already making your employees happy, I want to ask you, how have you optimized your customer experience? And what I mean by that is you were sharing with me when we met before this recording that your company comes in and they are kind of plugged into different teams at different companies, right? And that the goal is that hopefully they see how happy your team is and these other companies then take on this mission. So, I guess my question is, how have you seen that come into play, and what are you doing to optimize the customer experience?
Okay, so right, there is a joke in our company that whatever question people answer, I always answer with psychological safety. Um, so, so yeah, someone told me once that they have bingo cards, but I'm not sure that's true. But anyway, I'm going to bring up psychological safety here again, so because it's important, right? So one of the things that we found, like when we started, that if we wanted to make our client happy, we had to know how they were feeling, right? We had to know when they were happy, and they had to be able to tell us when they were happy. And look, some people find it really difficult to say good things to other people. They think of it as a sign of weakness. It's a bit too hippie. Do you know what, to compliment someone? I found it difficult when we started doing it because it's not something naturally that some people do. Um, and to be able to do that, to be able to get into that relationship, they need to feel you need to feel safe, really safe, being able to share bad news, be able to share good news. And so we do a lot of work. Our clients don't really notice it because we do it sort of subtly, stealthily, on their psychological safety. So we spend a lot of time not chatting about work. So when we call our clients, I intentionally ask them about their family, ask them about their kids, ask them about their football team, or how their cycling is going, or whatever. And and basically the closer we get to our clients, okay, the more we can understand what they actually want. We can understand their why, um, and that means we can do our work better because we understand why they want to do their work. So yeah, how have we optimized our customer experience? Just getting really close to them, making them feel safe to talk to us about whatever they want to. I think.
Yeah, I love that. And I mean, honestly, that's really relevant to, I would say, most business approaches, especially if you're in the service industry, any type of professional service or consulting or coaching in particular, and anything in like the therapeutic space. Man, for people to open up and be feel safe and comfortable enough to share that stuff with you, like therapists, for example, too. And I would say a lot of coaching and consulting, let's be real, is therapy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
When you're good at what you do, your clients feel so safe with you that they will tell you very personal things. They will
Mhm.
be emotional with you. And that's really sacred because that means your client really does feel safe. They really trust you, and honestly, to do good business these days, you need that kind of authenticity and that kind of level of deep trust from your client, especially if you want
Exactly.
to keep them for life.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so that's really great. Thank you for sharing those tactics and like specifics on how you guys very stealthily, but it really should just be part of the human condition
Yeah,
to
totally.
get to know people. Absolutely.
People
Um,
say this is work. We don't do this at work, especially now. So what we've noticed is we have remote workers, and remote workers they feel so pressured to be productive all the time that they don't feel comfortable having those non-work using sort of work time for those non-work chats. So yeah,
yeah,
encouraging it, showing them it's okay, showing them it's good is important, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to remind everybody here, but we are human.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
the
yeah,
water
yeah.
cooler conversations and the coffee break conversations, those lunch break conversations, even when you're online, they still need to go somewhere. So we are meant to be connected. We are meant to share. That's why when you go back to, the caveman days, you have campfires and circles and,
Yeah,
communities protecting each other. And it's different now in modern times, but people still need that outlet for connection to grow and feel safe. Absolutely.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're going to shift gears just a little bit. I want to hear about when you and your organization have left money on the table and what did you do to fix it?
Okay, right. Okay, so in our company, right? Yeah, revenue, profit, yeah, they're important, right? We need them to keep the company going, pay the staff, yeah, to save in case something goes wrong. But importantly for us, revenue, profit, they're not what drive our company, right? So our goals are not to make X amount of profit. Our goals are to make our team and our clients happy because we believe that if we do that first, then revenue and profits are going to follow. Now, obviously, we are not oblivious to profits and revenue. We have to create a profit. Nobody wants us to go bankrupt. Our staff still want to be paid, right? Right. Um, but leaving money on the table, that's not something that really worries us. So our goal is not to and this sounds crude, not to squeeze as much money from our clients as possible. That's not our goal. But it's more to have fair relationships with them, so that we can be happy and they can be happy. So now, obviously, there are times when we realize that we're not charging our clients enough. Okay. So what we do in those situations is we have honest conversations with them. We say, look, we're going to have to increase our price because X, because this developer that works with you, they've got so much better in the last 2 years, and we need to pay. They deserve a better salary. Or we need to invest more in the company to improve the training for the rest of our staff. And that's why we need. So honest conversations is how yeah, that's how we deal with that situation.
I love it. Yeah, I was not surprised by that response. I was kind of
Cool.
expecting it. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. I guess the other follow up question I'd have is where have you left happiness on the table and what did you do to fix it?
Oh.
Mm,
Okay. So like we are really intentional about happiness. So we have weekly meetings, we have management meetings, we have quarterly strategy meetings, set our OKRs and stuff. And the the first thing we ask is how can we make our teams happier? How can we make our clients happier? That's the first thing we ask. And anything that we do, we reflect back to those questions. So any sort of strategic thing that we do, we don't intentionally um, leave happiness on the table. Now, this we measure happiness every week. We ask our team how happy they are, scale of 1 to 5, and our goal is that we're 4 out of 5 average over the company all the time. This year, January, February, we dropped below 3 point to below 4 to sort of 3.8, 3.9, and we've realized we'd taken our eye off the ball. We were too focused on something else. So um, we made our OKR for the next quarter to bring it back to 4 to focus on those people that weren't as happy as they had been. And yeah, it's back up to 4. It's actually higher than it was before now because we took those intentional actions to make our team happier, to focus, to ask them what we needed to do. So never have we intentionally left happiness on the table. We have left it by accident, and yeah, we just were intentional about fixing it.
Yeah, so
Simple as
I
that.
guess my follow-up question to that, because it's very interesting. I like that you were able to turn that around because obviously that means retainment of staff, retainment of customers, because your employees affect your customer retention, your customer experience. But did you
Exactly.
notice that with that boosted happiness that the following quarter had a boost in revenue?
No, we have a fixed price for our clients. So
Got it, got it. I was just curious. I'm like, that would be interesting to measure. Future
no.
study, like if you onboard more, I don't know. I'm just kind of really curious if there's a direct correlation. Like you said, these studies have done that. So for the future, you can come back and tell us if you see a correlation between the happiness and the revenue in the future. Um,
Um, There's definitely a correlation between, like, we've only lost one client in the last 4 years because they were unhappy with us, and and they we but I'll tell you the story because we actually got rid of them. They they were not they were not our best client, right? And our team were not happy. They were twos, threes out of fives. And we went to our client. We said, look, our team, our team are not happy on this project now. And they're not happy for these three reasons. And can we do something together to fix it? And they said to us, look, uh, your team's happiness is not our problem. It's it's your problem. And so we thought, right, okay, at that point, we can't really do anything. So we actually finished with that client. But that's the only one that sort of left us because they weren't happy with us. But
There you go. There
yeah,
you go.
yeah,
Value line, making good decisions. Yeah, I feel
exactly,
like a
yeah,
lot of IT projects, if they had that particular metric, that they would be able to better manage the budgets for those consulting opportunities. And when it's not a fit, they would part ways sooner rather than later. And that would have a huge positive effect on the outcome of those projects. So I'm glad we went down that rabbit hole.
yeah.
So my last question on revenue is, what is the next shiny object that you and your company would like to turn into a new revenue stream?
Do you know what I'd love to do? I would love to share our knowledge, right? I'd love to be able to teach the world how to make workplaces happier, right? We've been doing it for 9 years. I've made a lot of mistakes. I've tried a lot of things, and I think I now pretty much understand how to do it. And do you know what? It breaks my heart every time I speak to a friend, I speak to a colleague, and they say that their job is terrible, they're not enjoying it, their workplace is toxic. It's like it doesn't have to be like that. A workplace can be such an amazing place. Okay, you place you could love going to, a place where you feel like you're producing real value to the world, right? And I would love to be able to teach other companies how to do that.
Mm.
And also just by showing them, like, it's not only going to benefit the company, give them better profits and all of that stuff. It's just going to be a much nicer place to go to work every day. Yeah,
I
love
would
to do that.
actually argue that it will give them a larger profit because they'll have
I
less
will do.
employee turnover, they'll have less
Yeah,
client turnover, they'll have the right people aligned to the right roles, people will be happier, so that the outcome and output will be higher. I can totally see you being a happiness consultant for leaders and companies
love
and
it.
doing happiness retreats and doing happiness keynotes. There's some really potentially good ideas for marketing that in a very
Cool.
sexy, catchy way that would, I think, really light up a lot of organizations that would really want to invest in this. So that's a great new shiny object. I encourage you to go after that.
I will.
Awesome. Report back to us. So, we're
Okay,
going to wrap up this amazing interview on happiness in the workplace. I have two rapid fire
cool.
questions for you.
Right,
The first one is, what's the best one piece of advice you would share with others today?
right. My one piece of advice that I'm giving everyone at the moment is something that you said earlier, right? So you've already stolen my thunder, but
It's okay.
I've just
You can
I've
take
just
it. I'll
finished.
give it to you.
I've just finished the course on well-being. It's a really good course, the Yale University one, by Laurie Santos, and it sort of teaches you how to build your personal happiness. And one of the key things, right, is that people who are positive, people who have a glass half full, are happier than glass half empty. But the problem is humans have, yeah, what you said before, a negativity bias. We find it much easier to see the negative aspects of things. So imagine you've got a performance review. They ask you, say, we're measuring you on 10 things. Say 9 out of 10, brilliant. But there's this one thing that you need to improve. You're going to focus on that one thing. Oh my God, I can't believe you said that. That's so unfair, even though you've got 95%. So, what I would like to give everyone is just focus on the positive things, right? It's amazing, you can actually teach your brain to change. Okay, it's called neuroplasticity. If you really focus on not the negative, if there's something bad's happening, but you look for the positive parts of it, you can actually train your brain, and naturally over time you will just start to naturally see more positive things in life, and it will make you happier. So that would be my piece of advice today.
I
Just
love
because
it. So everybody choose happiness. It is a real thing.
exactly.
You can actually change your brain. And yeah,
Yeah.
I talk a lot about that in my book too, how
Cool.
we have that bias and it was there for survival back in
Yeah.
caveman
Yeah. Yeah.
days with the lion. But when
Yeah.
you get a negative email or you have a close call in traffic, all that, like
Yeah.
let it go and choose to be happy. Let's
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah.
All right.
Love it.
What is the legacy you wish to leave behind?
Okay. So we're what's called a values-led company. So our values drive us. It's not profit. It's our values, about making that happiness is more important than is the most important thing. And that's what I'd like to leave behind. If I were to leave my company today or tomorrow, I'd like that to remain. I'd like the people running the company to take that with them, to to realize that happiness is the most important thing above
It
everything else.
is. Yeah. A legacy of happiness, you guys.
Yep.
Amazing stuff, Richard. Thank you so
You.
much for an incredible interview, for sharing the stories of what you're doing with happiness, for sharing your inspiration and your new shiny object of sharing this message with the world. Very inspiring stuff. If
Cool.
you want to follow Richard and his company, I will have the links for him on LinkedIn as well as his company's website, which is www.secret-sauce.eu.
But
Again, that will
source
be, go ahead.
source SOURCE.
Oh, I almost called it sauce. I want to
Yeah.
say secret sauce because it's tied to the first question I always ask
Yeah.
people. Secretsource.eu.
Source.
It will be
Yeah.
in the show notes so you can actually just click on that magical link and check that
Yeah.
out.
Cool.
Again, thank you so much for joining us and I'll see you on our next episode.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining the show today. I hope you were inspired. More importantly, I hope you take action. If the show inspired you, I ask that you subscribe and share it with your network. Let's spread inspiration together today.